computer. Yep. All righty. So welcome, everyone. This is Attorney Robyn McCoy and Attorney Tracey Martin with Politico Coffee. This is, what is this? This is February, this is the 6th, 2021. So we've got, and we are, this is Black History Month, and we are honored to have State Representative Ronnie Peterson with us here today. So welcome, Representative Peterson.
Hi, Rep. Ronnie.
Yes, so we are so excited to have you. You are a living legend, state rep, former Washtenaw County Commissioner. Tracey, I'm gonna turn it over to you. Do you want to, let's get it started, folks.
Well, yes, it is great to have Rep. Ronnie on Political Coffee this morning. I was going over Representative Peterson's CV, and one of the topics we're talking about today is how to run for office. And there's so many people on social media who have these ambitions to run for state level office, but they really don't know where to get started. So today, I hope to get some keen tips from Rep. Ronnie. We hope to get some keen tips from Rep. Ronnie about how to do that. And so, Representative Peterson, how many times have you actually been elected to office?
Oh, wow. I think it's somewhere around 10, this is 15, about 16 or 17 times.
Wow. Okay, so that in and of itself speaks for itself. If somebody wants to become like you, to run for office and get elected to office successfully, what would you say the first tip would be in terms of making that key critical decision to even run?
Well, they ought to make sure they have a passion, interest in what they're running for, and to make sure they understand the issues of that particular community or that particular entity. If it's a school board or a community college board, or a university board, I would have an interest in that institution. And I would first of all have an interest in the people that institution serve. As a municipality, I have interest in the people of that town. As Ann Arbor, Detroit, I would definitely have the passion for the people's interest. I just thought about what you just asked as a question and why I entered the government. It's definitely about passion. We got to get out of the show business, entering government. The problems that faces the people today is more crucial in terms of what lies for their destiny. I mean, to have the challenge of trying to find housing affordable, putting food on the table for our children, trying to get gainful employment training in order to move up an organization, is more crucial and important to have advocates, elected advocates, will sound your voice around those tables when it comes time to make budgetary important decisions, to make sure your voice is heard. You're a struggling mother trying to provide every day in the hospitality industry right now, which is challenged because most of our hotels are at 10 and 5% occupancy. Of course, all our restaurants are struggling. And right now, how do you put food on the table, and how do you pay those utility bills? And it's important that we in government, those who seek elected office should have the passion and the understanding of the people you would expect to represent. Not
so
supposed to be the passion.
Passion is important. Well, someone said something to me recently that I thought was very enlightening. And the individual said, I wish politicians would, when they run for office, I wish they would stop making all these pie in the sky promises and just, stick to the issues and say, I'm going to try my best when you elect me for office. Do you agree with that? You said something just a moment ago about, getting away from the show business aspects, the whole celebrity culture.
And I think that, let me just say that. I'm saying that because that's what I'm pushing for. And I've been pushing for the last 20 years of elected official. I endorse very few elected officials, and they'll tell you that. They find it really hard.
I noticed that.
Well, most of all, a lot of them are my friends, and it's hard to pick between friends. But most of all, I want to make sure you got the passion. It's important. It's important to know that the fact that kids are leaving school that cannot read or write.
That's right.
People are coming back from correctional institutions with no training after being housed for 10 and 15 years to come back in a productive society with no training at all to re-gauge themselves to make sure they don't return back to the correctional institution they just left. It is important to have elected officials who will carry that news to the importance of the political table for discussion. Parents don't have resources when many returned citizens come back home. Mothers retired, grandma's dead, brother's struggling himself. Now you got to aid and assist your brother or sister to re-enter in society. We have an obligation as elected officials to be a voice for that voice in the community. No, we don't owe them anything, but we owe them responsibility of being an elected official to speak that concern.
Right.
That's
and Representative Peterson, you know, I'm looking at your profile, and as a commissioner, you were the new Full Circle Community Center to enhance mental health services, established the Washtenaw County Dental Clinic to expand service delivery.
I was one of the people. Let me say, my colleagues, let me give them credit, but I carried that banner for 20 years. It took 20 years to get a medical clinic available for people who basically have no dental care at all in this county. One of the richest counties in the nation, but particularly one of the richest in the state of Michigan. We had no ability to provide dental care. Medicare recipients, those of, let me say, lack health care, had nowhere to go to find a physician. And that came from a kid in foster care. That took on that fight 20 years because I was working in juvenile. I could not get this kid dental care who was in foster care. Was nowhere would see him. The only dentist we could find was in Belleville, Michigan. And we got the dental school right here. It's amazing what it takes for a push. So I guess I was saying, you're talking about being an elected official, realize it may not come overnight. And my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners at that time, after about 20 years of bringing it up every year to the public health director, we have no dental clinic for the indigent population, begin to hear that. And let me give a shout out to Hope Clinic, who responded first, were one of the first to respond to making dental care available here in this Washtenaw County community. But also Washtenaw County did finally hear that plea and responded with subsidizing an affordable dental clinic that's available to all our citizens here in Washtenaw County.
Yeah, and I when I was a student, I went to the School of Dentistry, which, you know, it's great that they have that as a resource, but they drag things, you know, because of the so many people there, it takes longer to get things done. So we're definitely glad that you helped to create the dental clinic and the Hope Clinic. I refer a number of my clients there that need help, that need resources. We need to make sure that healthcare is affordable for everyone. So I know that you also helped to found the Harriet Street Commerce Center to provide employment and job training, and promoted the downtown Ypsilanti and Cross Street facade improvement program, and advocated for the establishment of the new Humane Society of Huron Valley. So can you comment some more on those efforts that you did as a county commissioner?
Well, it was important. It was important to, first of all, let me just give kudos to those of the mental health advocates here in Washtenaw County, particularly in Ypsilanti and Cleary, and Kettle Cleary, and Cleary Kettle, and was a longtime counselor at Eastern Michigan University, and of course a Ypsilanti historian. Came to me about the Full Circle need for a facility for many, let me say, community residents who have mental health, let me say, challenges every day, needed a place. And of course, we secured that location with the help of Washtenaw County Board of Commissioners, and of course, Bob Gunzel was county administrator at the time, who helped us put that together and to finance a facility for them. And of course, with their own board of directors to run the facility, I was fortunate to be on the board and made a huge difference. I think if anything else, I think I would maybe focus on it being, of course, a voice for public health. I'm a big voice for public health. But that came from the fact as a kid, watching public health nurses and public health staff come to our various schools, elementary schools, to provide shots for many of our kids. People do not realize the fact that many of our children do not see doctors on a regular basis. The only time they really saw and found medical needs was from a public health nurse. We do not have public health nurses in our school system as we had 30 and 40 years ago. And basically all the vaccination and shots came from the local school. And that was very important. That's the only first outreach that many of our kids had from the fact from their birth until they got to school age. Basically, that public health nurse stepped in. So kudos go to all the public health nurses and all the nurses in the field to provide that first line, let me say, healthcare provider. I would think also, I think I would mention the Humane Society. Yes, I cared about the Humane Society, came to the county board under the guidance of County Administrator Bob Gunzo, and the board fully supported. And of course, I was a vocal supporter for the Humane Society. It's important for us to be, let me say, care about even our favorite ones, and sometimes they happen to be our pets. Let me also point on Head Start. I think was tremendous. Washington County had one of the outstanding Head Start programs. Of course, the premier of Head Start, I don't know if you know, started right here at LC Perry School, where the Head Start was actually first preschool program was studied right at LC Perry, and of course, high school led that direction. And basically, it's important to know that Head Start here was one of the best Head Start programs in the country. I give kudos to Pamela McGee and the support the board gave her. Of course, Pamela McGee is an Ypsilanti educator and basically led that to an award-winning Head Start program. It's now have been transferred to the Inman School District. And basically, it's important that I think it was good for me to play a role in that. Thank you. Let me ask you all ask some questions.
Now that's beautiful.
Let me just talk to you a little bit. You asked me about engaging in politics. Can I further, Attorney Martin asked that. Can I further engage?
Yes, let's hear more.
Let's hear more, yes.
It is important what you do here today. That's why I accepted this invitation. I do very little public speaking outside of the rooms and the meetings I'm in. But it's important with you because people don't really understand my politics sometimes. And really, it's for them to learn it, not me. I know where I'm going. But many people say, I don't know what Ronnie stand on this. I don't know Ronnie's opinion. I don't know why he took this vote. Mine is deeply rooted. I got in politics from the Civil Rights Movement. So mine didn't come by the front door, just politics. I came in the door by demonstrating, protesting. And let me just say, I just did an interesting writing because that might be my book that I may write. And that book is called, I Thought I Was the End of the Jim Crow Kids that were elected in politics.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's a powerful title.
And what happened is I'm finding I'm not. So I'm finding out I'm not. The challenge today for African-American communities is just as great as the day I entered politics. And I got involved in politics because I chose the path of nonviolence. And I chose the path of nonviolent protests and nonviolent participating. And I thought the best way, never choosing to run for political office, never was on my mind to run for political office. But what it came about is that I wanted to support political candidates to share my views because it was not popular for African Americans to be elected. So I never could have visualized that. I'm a Jim Crow kid. I was raised and born in Jim Crow. And that's why I thought I would be the last to see Jim Crow. Of course, you all are very fortunate. You have seen nothing but integration in your life. Where I see nothing but separation in your life.
But Rep. Ronnie, what was your first elected office and what year?
It was County Board of Commissioners, I think 1986. I always say 96. And somebody said, why 96? No, I was 1986. It was 1986. My first elected office to the County Board of Commissioners. I was frustrated. I was frustrated with mental health services. I ran as a protest candidate. I never thought I would be elected. I spent my money that we had planned to go to Europe that year, and I was never want to be elected. I give kudos to a member of the bar, as you are, Judge Geraldine Bledsoe Ford.
Yes.
And I spent a lot of time with Judge Ford. Her mother, this present sitting Judge Ford, her mother, I spent time with.
Yes.
So Judge Ford told me once that we were in Ann Arbor at the university, and she walked with me. We just walked in, and she said, Ron, I was you, I wouldn't run. We said, really, Judge? She said, no, you're so affected by not running because you could tell people what you think and not worry about the repercussions of it. And she was right. It was hard for me, but I couldn't find nobody else to run. And I was trying to get candidates to run, but it was out of the norm that they would run for that office. And it wasn't running against anybody, just thought we needed representation at that level.
So you tried to recruit and nobody stepped up.
Nobody stepped up. I did.
And that was you.
Persuade. And so 4 minutes before filing deadline, I filed and basically said, let me shoot this in. If you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it, but I'm gonna shoot it in. And he shot it in, stamped in the paperwork. And then I walked out realizing I was a candidate 2 minutes after 4, but that was never my desire. I was fortunate to have former Secretary of State Richard Austin, one of my mentors. Of course, Robert Millinger, who was Judge Penny Millinger's father.
Yes.
And of course, Bob Millinger was a very, very, let me say, strong and a strong voice, and a very strategically strong politically. He was, of course, many campaign managers for many campaigns, and I had the pleasure of working with him. Of course, Judge
Wow.
Mellinger, prior to her departure, she asked me to be interviewed for the book. She asked me 3 times, and finally I granted the interview for her father. She was doing a biography on her father, who was a very political, skillful individual. So,
That's
you know,
an amazing story.
my entry was not because of just Democratic politics. It was the civil rights movement. And I'm still devoted to civil rights. People will tell you it's about rights. It's not about the politics. It's about rights.
That's amazing.
And Representative Ronnie, I know that. So you were, you were on a commissioner for Washtenaw County for what was it, probably 2 or 3 decades, and then you decided to become state rep. So what made you decide to go from being a county commissioner to becoming a state representative?
But Robyn, before that, Rep. Ronnie, weren't you on the Ypsilanti City Council? I thought I read that as well.
Let me just tell you what happened. It's an interesting scenario that happened there. I was first on the county board of commissioner. And you asked the question, Rob. Let me make sure. And I'm going to come back to your question to Attorney Minor, because it's going to come right into play. What was your question again?
I asked you what made you decide to go from county commissioner to state rep.
State rep, okay.
Yeah, and then Tracy said about being on the Ypsilanti City Council.
Because I made another jump. I was on county board of commissioner about 6 or 8 years, and I left county board of commissioner, and I resigned. I resigned from county board of commissioners to run for Ypsilanti City Council. And people thought I had basically lost my mind. You don't leave county board to run for city council. And people did not understand, and I did not give a real answer to why I left the county board. I just said I'm leaving. A very capable individual filled in for me, Councilman Al Robertson, who later on became a county commissioner for about 3
Because
terms.
there's no term limits, right?
No, there was no term limit. But what happened was, and this is part of the passion for the need of the community, it was a young lady. First of all, I was concerned about the rise of violent crime in the community and also the lack of services. We always got to realize in fighting crime, you got to have something for others to do. You got to offer services for others. You know, people have mental health needs. You got to provide mental health services. People have employment issues. You got to provide employment, training, and plus opportunities for the job. I was very concerned with the future of our community. And unfortunately, I read an article that made me make that final decision. It was a young lady in public housing on New Year's Eve. And I read the article the next day, and I said, I'm very concerned about our community. She was sitting in her living room, watching the TV, according to the newspaper article. The newspaper article says someone shot a random bullet, and it hit her in the head. And they found the baby at her ankles. The baby had rolled out of her arms, her newborn baby, and rolled on her feet, hit on her ankle. And that's how they found her deceased. I said, our community is bigger than this. I'm leaving the county board to go back to local government. Talk about the issues of making our housing safe and decent, but also making sure our community is aware there's other things to do other than go randomly shooting. We never found out who shot her. I participated in her burial. The community gave a community respectful burial. Mother became one of my dearest friends, and we braced the family, visit the home, and just told her I apologize for the community. We're bigger than that. She minded her own business, watching TV, babysitting her own baby, and a random bullet went through the window. So I went back to the city council just to address some of the issues about the community that I came from. I was born in Ypsilanti. That's the community I came from. And I say that to people who run for offices. You don't just run. You run on a mission. And people like you all today, Robyn, and Attorney Mitchell, it's for you to question them. Why? What are your intent? If you're running just to be a decorated piece, we don't need that. We got enough show dials out here.
Right.
We got enough show pieces. We need some battleships out here. So we got to ask the question: are you going to be a cruise ship or a battleship? We don't need no more cruise ship. We don't need no more cruise ship. That's a party ship. We need somebody going to take on our battle and our fights every day. And then let me just say, those in the majority, don't get upset because an African American got a strong opinion about something. They take the baggage and the luggage for every African American and every disfranchised person in the system to that meeting. So don't get mad at them if they come a little frustrated. They're representing 200 or 300 people who have complained to them about the same problem, and that problem has not been addressed. And we have to realize, you talk about being a progressive movement, because people say, I don't know if Ronnie progressive, but where he at on the issue sometimes. I wake up in the morning trying to be fair. At the end of the day, if you're sitting on that other side of the table, you don't understand that that's your damn problem, because I'm going to be fair and just in all of my dealings when it comes to issues that people brought before us. And then we got to be conscious. We got to be conscious of the fact that elected officials, that we represent the ones with the rags on their heads and wear the smocks to the grocery store, to the house shoes. At the end of the day, we represent those who wear gowns, tuxedos, and have PhDs, and those who have no education. It is important when we walk in that room, we represent all of them. So we have to have a diverse personality, and we have to be unique. So some people find it difficult to read me. Don't try to read me. The lobbyists say don't try to read him because he's too difficult to read. First of all, I didn't go to the Lancet with a cup in my hand. And then back to your point, Attorney McCoy, because I did not miss your point. Why did I choose to run? I took a 50% pay cut to run. And I gave up a lifetime pension benefits that I feel the pain for now. But I had a commitment. I had a commitment, not because I didn't think anybody else was capable, but I wanted to share a voice and concern about the future of our children. I mean, we have kids who cannot read. Now, how do you make it as a society and you cannot read? What do we do to kind of enhance that system? How do we get the support system that exists? Our kids have learning centers, tutoring centers, not just during school hours, but beyond school hours. A mother has a kid with a mental illness and is basically crying out for help. It's important to have an elected official who will become that mother advocate. I had an interesting experience, and I'm gonna get back to your question. The superintendent, Ben Edmondson, asked the question to me one day. He said, Ronnie, I heard you just mention you don't have any children. I said, yeah. Every time you in school meetings, you always talk about my children. He said, all this time, I thought you had a whole lot of kids in school. He actually told me this in a private meeting. I said, they're all my kids. They're all my kids.
Preach.
And all of my kids.
Okay.
He said, Ronnie, I thought those were your kids. And I tell every parent, and I'm glad the parents accept my invitation. If he don't have a daddy, when I get to that meeting, I am his daddy.
Okay.
And I told the administrators that. They said, Ronnie, how many? And Ben said, Ronnie, I always thought they were your children when you were sitting in those meetings. No, you have to understand. Mother comes in there, totally intimidated by an institutional system that's supposed to be protecting her child and her interests. And that's in a lot of things we do in government service. That's in clinics, that's in schools, that's in outreach agencies. Sometimes you don't make that mother and that child feel they're the most important person in the room. And that mother has a passion of one interest, protecting the interests of her child. So many times, I don't wear a silver spoon tongue. I need to be in that meeting. And I tell my staff to schedule me to be up in that meeting. And they're often surprised I attend, but that's been my whole career. I spend very little money on campaigns. 98% of my campaigns were totally financed by me. So I don't owe nobody, and I feel good about that. And I said, when I said I quit a job, 50% pay cut, believe me, I had to adjust my belt, including paying my legal bills on a payment plan. So I couldn't pay cash for. So, but that was the importance, because I did not want to leave my legacy in vain. That all I cared about, and let me just say those academics, achievers, I applaud you. I say tremendous of you, but you do like Attorney Martin and Attorney McCoy doing today. You all reach and help somebody. I get very frustrated, and now let me make that editorial comment. I get very frustrated with African Americans who achieve their ultimate achievement, and then you run for cover, and you're not on the battlefield for any cause or any initiative. It's sad. It's sad in my heart. I gave up a career to be on the battlefield. If I'd have compromised early in my life and shut my mouth up, I more likely would have had a very successful, let me say, career. At the end of the day, Martin Luther King III, Martin Luther King's son, and I was chatting one day, and he said, Ronnie, I'll come there, so I didn't campaign for you in my first election. And he didn't only campaign for me, but he went door to door in the public housing with me. And he said, Ronnie, I never endorsed. He was at a party. I never endorsed. I wanted to come in and peer with you, but I never endorsed. But he said in the audience at Jean Hall Curry's house function, he said, I never endorsed. But today I'm here to endorse Ronnie Peterson because of the fact and the commitment he has to stand on. For that
You know,
reason, and that reason alone, I feel an obligation to speak up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
that's fantastic, Rep. Ronnie. You read my mind when you went down the road of campaign finance, because we're living in an era now where a lot of would-be candidates are intimidated from running because they feel like they don't have the money.
Mhm,
They don't have the money to run.
mhm,
And what would you say? You said that you self-funded your campaigns. What do you say to a candidate who is not in the same financial position? How can they raise money? How much money do you think it takes to run for state office? I would like to share with you my formula.
mhm,
My formula is that you should try to raise the amount that you make in terms of your salary. So for
mhm,
state representative, what is that now? 71.9 plus you
mhm.
get a $10,000
You got it down, don't
incentive
you?
bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
what's your formula? What would you say to someone who's thinking about running, but their pockets are kind of slim?
I would think you're about accurate, about close to that. You're about accurate as you can be in terms of the amount of money and commitments. And normally state reps do spend about that money, $50,000 for a seat. And of course, judicial seats are similar. Um, Let me just say that I contribute a great deal to the fact that my constituent base. If you work hard coming up and being an advocate in the community, I didn't expect to win, as I mentioned. And as a matter of fact, a few people do know this because I had given a concession speech that night to the Ann Arbor News. They spent about an hour and a half with me on the campaign and thought it very interesting that I ran a grassroots campaign. And we had expected to lose. My hopes was up so my supporters' hopes was up so high. But I had stopped campaigning 2 weeks before the election. And they sort of kind of dragging me by not campaigning very hard. And I told them, let me tell you something, I will not be disappointed at all by my feet, the appreciation I have for you all hard work. But I spent all my money to go to Europe. I spent every dime.
Wow.
and and the thought is that I was going against the current. And the Ann Arbor News had left, and my workers are out there. They were kind of disliked. Most of them had never been engaged in a campaign. And my parents were there, and they accepted whatever it will be. They just worried about me. And so we walked out. The guy said, "Ryan, what's wrong, man?" So I took a walk outside. I came back in, and as I was walking back in, the Ann Arbor News reporter came back. I think it was gone about 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. And I said, "What's wrong?" I just left the tally room. You got to win this. Winning. I said, "I am." She said, "Yes. What do you have to say now, Ronnie?" I don't know what I'm going to do. And the thought is, I didn't know what I was going to do. The fact of a victory, but I knew that it would make a statement. And let me just say this to you, and I've never shared this. Sometimes we're not always accepted when we take on establishment. I was not widely accepted. It was very challenging to me because I had a more personal personality. And that becomes because you have a faith background. You're supposed to be warm, pleasant to everyone, speak to everyone. I was speaking to people who speak to me. I was being pleasant to people who were not pleasant to me. And that was very hard, even in the campaign, for me to adjust to. I didn't know people was that angry about me running, and I didn't know they were furious about me. And I explained that to them before. I don't know how I'm going to adjust my life. It's like almost being a missionary. You just do warm days and challenging days, but every morning you get up and take on that challenge. Well,
Right.
And I think that's
got
awesome. That's for it's beautiful for the public, for the voters that you took that initiative and you went and now here we are and you're doing amazing things, and we salute you again. This is Black History Month, although we Black every day. For the public, look, we Black every day. Okay,
365, 24/7.
okay, 365 days. So Ronnie, it's just I'm glad that we have you here because I teach college students. I work with the youth, just like you. I don't have any kids right now, but everybody, it takes a village. I'm like, hey, these are all my children, And so
Mhm.
it's a beautiful that as I said, it's good for the people out there, for the younger people, I think about the young Black boys that are out there that are struggling. Like you said, you were supposed to be the last part of the Jim Crow, and now it's the new Jim Crow. You know, shout out to
That's
Michelle
right.
Alexander. You got the new Jim Crow. And so it's like,
Mhm.
we want our children to look to leaders like you, to the example that
Mhm.
you set, and say, okay, Ronnie, he's doing it. Rep Ronnie. I'm gonna take Tracey. She's making it hip. Rep Ronnie. Rep Ronnie is out there doing his thing, and so you're in your third term now as state rep. And I see, again from your profile, you helped with a 10 million expansion of the American Center for Mobility Campus, 8 million major safety redesign of US 23 in the West Willow region, secured state funding for the Thompson Block building redevelopment, spearheaded the movement to establish a train station in Depot Town. I mean, the list goes on. You've been doing a lot of things. And so with your, you just won for re-election, and you've got the next couple of years to go. So what is your outlook? What is your plan or vision for the next 2 years? And then what are we doing after that, Ronnie? You gonna run for state rep? You running for Congress? What's going on?
Let me just tell you something. We have excellent representation in the community, and I appreciate the working relationship I have with them. We, as you know, we just finished at the last of the year a first piece of legislation that allowed us to put in place a sickle cell license. We're raising the money now for the mold for it, raising $90,000. You will be able to, we hope by next year, to buy a license plate with support sickle cell.
Oh, that's great.
Treatment. It'll be the only African-American plate in the state of Michigan in the Michigan history.
Congratulations. Good job. That's great.
Many children and adults who suffer with sickle cell, but also it was a major statement. So I appreciate all my legislative colleagues who joined in, and I had a bipartisan support, 68 co-sponsors of that bill to make that possible. And we put that in place to make sure sickle cell will always receive dollars for every license plate that is sold here in the state of Michigan. We still have to deal with police training. It's got to be mandated that we increase police training. We're seeing the shootings that are taking place across the nation, and we're fortunate in Michigan that we have a trained police force, but it needs to be enhanced. And so I introduced a bill that passed almost unanimously by the House. I'll come back with a bill. Of course, Senator Irvin introduced one in the Senate that passed likewise. We're going to come back and address police training.
Great.
Diversity
Much needed.
is changing from the practice of police officers. We got to understand it's not just Black and brown that are affected by the policing. It's the training. This affects everybody.
Right.
We have a different culture from the days when police officers went on the street 20 years ago. And it's important to be sensitive to who they meet on the street. So it's wonderful. But let me also emphasize the fact when you talk about campaign money, I think it's almost about relationship. And let me just say this. Fear not when you want to run for office. Take on the challenge. African Americans got to realize I represent a district that's 60-some% non-African American.
Oh, okay.
Not majority African American. It's built on relationship. It's built on the delivery of service. And I'm fortunate to have a wonderful staff who treat everybody the same. And when they go against the wall, they are to call me before a final decision is made and let me engage, being an advocate for that citizen. And I say, if you choose to run for public office, be willing to reach beyond your friendship, the friends you have. And
expand the circle.
Establish your circle. Widen your circle. Don't lose your own identity. I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and I've got to say this, being in politics mostly all of my life. I mean, I entered politics when I was a kid, so I couldn't even drive when I entered politics. But I admired people like Senator Phil Hart, who Hart Plaza is named after. I admired Bob Milliger, who Milliger Center is named after. Richard Austin, whose state building is named after. All people I knew personally, and I had a personal relationship with them, personally working with them. You have to realize these people, G-Man and Williams, Governor Williams, who are building this named after Michigan. I knew Governor Williams. Governor Williams' wife is from Ypsilanti. So, but what happened, and I want to make this statement about it. The statement is, these people were ahead of their time in terms of social justice and integration before it was popular. People don't realize Phil Hart was introducing civil rights legislation, co-sponsored civil rights legislation, when the nation was against it. G. Minnie Williams was standing up to Lyndon Johnson on major pieces of legislation that affects people of color. Neil Stabler, who's a Stabler family in Ann Arbor, who was Congressman Stabler, was one of the few to speak at the March on Washington when others stayed away. I think it was only 26 members of Congress even showed up for the March on Washington. So we got to understand, when I was talking about not entertaining, but we got to understand this is a movement that will never die, should never die. When I'm saying I thought I was the end of Jim Crow, that is a statement to young African Americans and those who believe in tearing down walls that are not African American. This challenge, these walls are still much in front of us. I met it leaving out of Cincinnati, Ohio, crossing over to Kentucky. In my lifetime, that was the South. Once you left out of Cincinnati and into Kentucky, it was all Jim Crow, all separated. Colored bathroom, colored waiting areas, colored section, colored entries to the bus, everything during my lifetime. We are seeing some of that happen today, being reversed, that people are unconscious, that we have to be a society, a mixture of all kinds of people. We walk in the room, I ask some of my friends sometimes that are non-African American, I'm the only Black guy you know. They say, why you say that, Ronnie? It's 300 here. I'm the only dark-skinned guy here. Reach me on. And that doesn't mean you are being called a racist. It's asking you to be sensitive, that we are all people. And it's somewhere we got to be sensitive. If we don't have a Black judge, why not?
Right.
We should ask that question in a broader sense, as a community. So I'm not speaking just to Blacks. I'm speaking to a community at large who may be listening to it. We got to be sensitive. But let me say this to you. In my philosophy, and I tell my political colleagues, when you're Black, you don't get a pass either, brother. When you ain't speaking out on the issues and the causes affecting your people because you want to be comfortable, you don't get a pass. What you all doing today, you call them out. You put them on your show. You call them out and ask them about their particular stand on issue. Because when you get a pass, they be thinking we're satisfied, we're comfortable, living in this, let me say, living in this situation. And we cannot be comfortable as long as kids cannot read. We cannot be comfortable when people are innocent, incarcerated. We cannot be comfortable when people cannot get legal representation because of the fact that their inability to afford it. We cannot be comfortable when a guy when a woman in a society from a correctional institution cannot find any training, cannot find job opportunities. We cannot be comfortable because that's only a pathway back. And no, it's not a pathway to prison in my world. It's a pathway to college. And we got to stop believing that.
Ronnie, on that point, you talk about criminal justice reform and how there's still miles to go, more work that needs to be done. But now Michigan is a leader when it comes to the expansion of expungement eligibility. As you know, there was this magnificent, I call the Magnificent Seven bill package that was signed by the governor, passed and signed by the governor in October 2020. What is your take on the expansion of expungement eligibility in Michigan? And now Michigan's going to have automatic expungement soon.
Great. And I thank you all for being an advocate, Attorney Martin, Attorney McCoy. Your voices were well heard. Your discussion was well taken. Your writing, your letters, your correspondence, it helped move the legislative body. It came with bipartisan support. So I commend the legislative body for, or let me say, receiving it. But also, I think people realize the fact people change in life. And it was no opportunity for them to erase their path. And it was important that this take place. And I was on the floor doing all the deliberation and process, and just talking to the judiciary chairman the other day. There's more to come. And let me just say this though, I had the privilege of talking to some of my Republican colleagues in the caucus, and I shared with them, as we begin the expungement, it's a great path for employment opportunities. I think they saw that many people could not receive gainful employment, particularly professional employees. You had to
I'm getting calls. I'm getting calls from folks because I do the forums. We did one on Thursday with folks out of Wayne County. I have one.
It was great too.
Yeah, I have one planned for March 27th. I've already reached out to your office to see about your availability, and I applaud you for your efforts, but I get calls on a regular basis from people that want to have their records cleared. They were not eligible under the prior statute, so more people will be eligible with the new legislation that's coming in, but there's still going to be that third group of folks, so we're going to be needing to talk to the governor about pardons. Like other governors have done 1,200 pardons, so I know when I reached out to the governor's office before, they said, okay, well, we've got some things working in the House and the Senate. Okay, we've got clean slate, but there's still those folks, young brothers that get 4 and 5 felonies for delivery, manufacturing of marijuana. They were young and they were dumb. And they're not going to, the new statute says 3 felonies, 4 misdemeanors, and it's a good start, but it's like, we still need to think about pardons, talking to the governor about what it, mass pardons for people, because I've got folks, they may have had something 20, 30 years ago, they haven't done anything else, and they need to have help with housing, jobs, employment, all of that.
I totally agree. Let me just say, you all deserve your commitment. You all went all over the state, your communication went all over the nation, and you deserve to be commended. And let me say to you too, encourage other attorneys to get engaged and be involved. People heard from the legal community and they responded. They need to continue to hear from you. But also, let me just point out, let's deal with the fact too that training needs to be available for many returning citizens. Education assistance need to be available. People have been institutionalized for 10, 15 years of your life. Things have changed. How they reenter society is important. We put things in place to make sure they're successful in reentry. Then let me just say to you, I share a deep concern. I talk to the corrections department often about it. About 2,300 women sit in here in Valley Correctional Facility, right here in this particular county. It's important for us to gear programs, to put some demonstrative programs together, to make sure these women can reenter society and reenter society with opportunities. They never maybe, let me say that they started off along their way to somewhere, they got lost in the system. And now it's time for them to come home. Reuniting with their families is very challenging when they have no training, no skill, and have no job opportunities. So start thinking about that. If you guys start thinking about it, somebody got to be a voice for those women. And I'm not hearing that voice loud enough. We all subject to be dealt with a challenge situation. How do we handle when that challenge is for us? I visit that correctional facility and I wonder about this women's future. That's why I described the woman with the rag on their head. Eastern Michigan University president, kudos go out to President Jim Smith, who I'm very proud to be associated at Eastern Michigan University. I asked him when I first got elected to meet in this conference room. I don't mean to share this private conversation, but it was private. And Commissioner Ricky Jefferson was in the room doing the discussion. And I asked President Smith, he asked me, Ronnie, what I told you what my issues were. Let me hear what yours are. I said, President Smith, I want you to offer something. There are women who have dropped out of college. Many of them dropped out because of, unexpected pregnancy, finances. They dropped out because their parents died and they couldn't handle it well. They broke up in a relationship. It was very troubling with them to re-enter back into college. Whatever that matter may be, I want you to see, can you give them an opportunity to re-enter school with tuition assistance, housing, and transportation. Allow them to have that and a sitter for their kids, so they won't have to worry about their children. President Smith looked at me, he nodded. I said, President Smith, let me also say, I want you to choose some. Would you choose some with a rag on their head? Mary didn't always wear that rag. Mary can't afford to get her hair done like she used to. She's struggling raising 3 kids.
Okay.
She was in the school of nursing. She was in school of nursing before she started. She was in school of nursing before she started having school kids. And many of us know people drop out of school for various reasons. It's not because of their academic preparation or their ability. They just didn't have the resources to help them through school. And I asked them, just take 12. And let me just say this. President Smith tells me every time I talk with him, Ronnie, I'm gonna take on that challenge. I like the challenge. Because when you take on 12, it's a message to the other institution. Give them a chance and they will succeed. Some people have never had a chance. And if they have a chance, they will succeed. And let me just say this to you. I say that about our kids. Our kids gotta have an opportunity to succeed. And I'm worried about that door shutting in their face. They didn't have a mother. Some of them didn't have a father. Some of them were raised in foster care. Some of them was just passed around relatives. Some of them never knew their dad. I meet kids all the time, never knew their father. That's why I stepped in to be their father. But that is not our business. I tell agencies all the time. That is not our business. He comes here to get an education. Allow him the opportunity to get an education. So I'm going to ask you all to continue your advocacy work as you've done in the legal clinics and in your legal practice and doing your academic preparation. To find and continue to find new fights for lawyers and Vanzetti Hamilton Bar Association. And let me just say this, when he was one of the hosts, when my first race, and Attorney Hamilton was my personal attorney before McCoy Associate became my attorney. Attorney Vanzetti Hamilton was my attorney, and he was my attorney at all of the political events that I hosted. I think Van came to every political event I had in the early stages of my career. And when Martin Luther King came to campaign for me, he was there as well. I remember looking over my shoulder at Van that he was there. What a wonderful individual. Came up in a difficult time. People don't realize how difficult it was for Black lawyers to come up in a very challenging time in our society. Vanzetti, let me say, navigated well, and I commend you all for naming the Vanzetti Hamilton Association after him. But also, let me just say this, when you talk to your members, Van was engaged in his community. And I did Vanzetti campaign for the Community College Board of Trustees, which he won that night and was served until his death on the Washington Community College Board of Trustees. So I say to you, the Vanzetti Bar Association, continue the good work, but also there's a lot more work out there to do in terms of advocacy that other groups
I
are
agree.
involved in, and you continue to play the role. Let me take a couple more questions before I leave, but you have a couple more questions for me, because I've been doing all the time.
I want to second what you said.
You know,
I salute you and State Senator Jeff Irwin to take on the issue of police training, because as you know, I do programs on what to do when stopped by the police. And we had Ben Crump, Attorney Ben Crump, come talk to us. I plan to do more. I would like to have some more where we're all getting together and talking about legislation. Like, we need to have the passage of the George Floyd legislation, the John Lewis legislation, the Breathe Act, all of that. So I salute you, because yes, and I became a lawyer to help the brothers in the system. So I still do the indigent defense. But then I was pulled over to work with children as well. And that's what I really think about with all the things that are going on right now. If we do need to be there for children and have them understand, I'm working with a client right now. I'm working with her to help her finish out high school. She's got some struggles going on. Her grandmother's helping her, and we're trying to make sure she gets all the resources. So that's what, and one of my biggest or newest initiatives this year, I got what to do when stopped by the police, expungement, how to navigate the school system, but it's pathways to law school, because right now there's only 5% of the population is Black attorneys. And, but it's like Black people are disproportionately affected by the prison industrial complex, the neglect system. We're called into the neglect system. We're in the family courts. But we don't have the representation as far as we need to have more Black attorneys. We need to have more women attorneys, more progressive people, not just having an attorney, okay, but have progressive people out there. And so we're going into high schools, the colleges, to talk to young people, to get them motivated, make sure they get the supports. I had a colleague who wanted to, she was with me at EMU and was talking about she wanted to be a college professor. And I was saying, that's great, but we need to be K through 12, because if we don't get those kids preschool through 12th grade, the high school diploma is like one of the biggest things that we need to get for everybody. Make sure you have a high school diploma. Then if you go to a 2-year school, my nephew graduated from Washington. I hope Washington is listening to what you're saying about EMU, making sure, partnering with folks that are returning citizens to give them the supports that they need, because we have a lot of brilliant people out there, children, adults, that need to be given the opportunity to show their genius. That's what, I teach a class at EMU on law and the African American experience. And I look at my kids, I meet them where they are, work with them. I know that they have struggles, trying to help them to be successful, whatever their mission is, psychologist, whatever they're planning to do, a history professor, we, you know, it's just, I feel like everybody has, I'm a spiritual person. Everybody has, I know Tracey as well. We all, and Rep Ronnie, we all have a gift. It's like the Lord put us on the planet to do something. So it's like we need to take that energy and channel it into a good direction. So I would just say, if, like, what would you say? I know you have done some things as far as mentoring young people. And so if a young person wants to do something with your office, like what options do they have available to them?
My office is never locked. No drawers are locked in my office. So young people come in my office, you get total exposure. They go to committees with me. They go to meetings with me. They sit in meetings with me. And they basically set up meetings for me. And they get any exposure you want. I don't have them just pushing paper, running errands. And no, they don't pick up my laundry. And no, they don't go get my sandwiches.
And Rep. Ronnie, do they have to live in your district? Like, say if someone from Wayne County is watching this program and they want to shadow you, can they call your office, and how would they go?
They can shadow me. They also can intern in my office.
Fantastic.
I always believe, see, it was not that many elected African-American officials. So I had to learn from others. And let me just say, a lot of the majority population did a lot with me, and I appreciate it. But I believe that that's what I'm saying to you all today in the Van Zandt Hamilton Bar Association. Reach and help these young people enter the professional realm. That's why I put that challenge to Eastern Michigan University president. Yes, and Washington Committee president will be with me by Zoom in I think in about 5 days. The president of EMU have done one with me. I have this philosophy, and I'm fortunate to serve on appropriations, so I get a little conversation sometimes with university president. And I believe that you have 15 major public institutions in Michigan: Fair State, University of Michigan, Michigan State University, Central Michigan University. I've had the pleasure of talking to most all those presidents year after year. And Eastern president heard my request. Our school district should not be under such challenging situations with a university right up the street. It should not be that way. And basically, Eastern Michigan president responded and have given resources to Ypsilanti Public School with Ypsilanti Collaborations Change, which is a partnership with Eastern Michigan University, Washington Community College, and the Washington County government, and basically the Ypsilanti Community Schools and United Way, in working together to address some of these challenges that some of our kids meet, and using resources. And I commend President Smith for that commitment. Let me just say, I put that same challenge to U of M president. President Schwartz, Mark is a great president, fine institution, a big institution he runs. And sometimes I think he tried to avoid me, but you know, I've been avoided by the best. I'm a bloodhound. I seek you out. And sometimes President Schwartz said at one meeting, he finally said, "I'm going to do what Ronnie asked." And I appreciate President Smith. University of Michigan president came to Ypsilanti schools. That was the first time in 50 years. First time in the history of the school he ever spoke.
Wow.
The only time President Fleming spoke to the honor students, he spoke at the honors banquet 50 years ago. President Swisher came 2 years ago to speak to the students. He spoke to the students about a commitment from University of Michigan to Ypsilanti Community School. He said, "You're 18 minutes from my door. You're 18 minutes from my door." He said, "This is unacceptable. I need to do more work in Ypsilanti." I appreciate President of U of M for that commitment. And that's what I'm saying, moving the needle. We as elected officials got to move the needle for the best interest of our people. And that's what I'm saying. Are you a workhorse or are you a show horse? Our people need workhorses. We are too much on the edge right now. You can look pretty now. You don't stop looking good. That's a birth thing. You don't stop looking good. That's a birth thing. And let me just say that you have to present yourself. You have to present yourself appearance-wise. I wear ties mostly every meeting I go to. It's expected to me. I'm a brother. I'm a sound off in the room. And yeah, I wear business suits. I want to fit into the room. But at the end of the day, I don't forget who I am in the room. I cannot forget what I'm in the room for. If I would have pursued Mark as president of U of M to come to Ypsilanti, he would have never came. I know he wouldn't have came. He finally told Cynthia Wilbanks, University of Michigan Vice President of Relations, "I'm going to Ypsilanti." Ronnie been asking me, I'm coming to Ypsilanti. President Smith has made his office, his staff available to Ypsilanti Public School. 15 universities, most of them close to an urban setting. Our school district should not be challenged by with having a major university at back doors. The students need to be there, tutoring students, math, science,
Right.
tutoring, make them prepared for that next entry in education. And the same thing about vice versa with every university in this state. So I'm pleased with the community college. Rose had made herself example, president of community college, to do what we can. We got to do that for returning citizens, and that's my next argument to make, that they have an opportunity to go to these institutions and get resources to go back to school, but they won't have to return, even thought about going back to a judicial system.
And Rep. Ronnie, I know that we only have you for a few minutes, but this is Political Coffee, and I do have to ask, what mug did you bring today, and what kind of beverage or drink do you have inside?
Ah, this is water. It's strawberry water inside. I don't drink coffee. If you could tell, I'm hyper enough. If I had some water,
I know, I don't drink coffee either.
I'll be on the wall. I have not had coffee since 1968. I was a little boy, and I took a cup of coffee, and believe me, it took me 3 days to get over it. And I have not had coffee since. It took me on such a high.
Yeah, I don't, even though we call it political coffee, I have my, my American flag mug, and I've got some herbal tea in here. But I do tea, water. I don't do coffee either. I'll be bouncing off the walls. I'm with Rep. Ronnie.
Well, guess what? Nobody's drinking coffee today because I have hot chocolate inside my mug. And, Attorney McCoy and I are going to be launching Political Coffee on YouTube. In fact, some of our videos are up there, and we're going to be rolling out Political Coffee mugs. And Rep. Ronnie, you are going to receive one of our inaugural Political Coffee mugs. But today, I brought my Let It Rip mug from when I went on Hill Perkins's show. Let It Rip, the guests get the mug. And so we are going to be doing that on Political Coffee with our own mugs.
Yes, so shout out. So thank you for being, this is our inaugural show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Let me just say this. Us brothers don't often get an opportunity. You all don't often showcase us. I feel so privileged, so fortunate. But let me just say this to you. I'm glad you let me speak the way I wanted to speak. I felt extremely comfortable. You're a wonderful host. And I look forward
Thank you, Rep. Ronnie.
I hope
I gotta say, I accept your challenge. You've really inspired me. Listening to you, and you talked about Huron Valley Women's Correctional Facility, the only women's correctional facility in the state. And I've had clients who've been incarcerated there, and I know they've had problems up there, especially with the pandemic. But I'm going to be contacting the facility to reach out about teaching the women there and helping out with implementing some of these programs. So thank you so much for inspiring me and us all. It's fantastic. We feel very honored to have you here today on Political Coffee.
And I'll take it back to, I'm on the board for Black Women Lawyers in Michigan. I'm also a past president for Vanzetti. So I will take it back to our board because, I've had clients at Huron Valley Correctional Facility. And so as well as I have a lot in Detroit. And so there is definitely a need. Like I've seen there's, Tracy and I interviewed a professor, I think it was Foreman. It was on our show. He teaches at Yale, but he also teaches at the prison in Connecticut. He teaches at Yale. So he's teaching the students at Yale, but he also teaches at the prison. And we need to have that. We need to have, you just think about the geniuses that are out there, the young children and the adults, returning citizens, how much further we can go. I watched the inauguration and I was so impressed when you look at the background of Dr. Jill Biden, the fact that she is a professor at a community college and that, she wrote her thesis about this issue, about making sure that the kids are getting, and adults are getting the 2-year degree, you can't, as I said, it's like you want folks to get more people to get high school diplomas. I'm working with parents to do that, then get an associate's degree, college, go further and further. But we got to make sure we have that village support. Everybody's got to, people keep asking, what can I do? You can adopt, you can be like a mentor. The Boys and Girls Club, Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they're looking for mentors. They have a wait list of children and they need mentors to help them. So it's like, we need to be out there. It takes a village. So Rep. Ronnie, we salute you. We thank you for being here, for giving us your time. We'll probably have you come back and give us some legislative updates. Let us know
about the book. his book.
Yeah, you got when you get your book together, come on back and we can help you promote your book.
I thought I was the end. Let me share this with you. I hope you all be my guests too. I do Zooms. Like I said, I'm doing a series now. We just hired a lieutenant governor on Thursday. And of course, I said we coming up as community college president. We just finished with Eastern president. We have a star host like you all expected to be. But I would love to have you all and talk about Black lawyer, not just talk about law, but talk about the advocacy of law. And I mentioned before about the Huron Valley Women's Prison. Let me help you meet that challenge. I would love to get some of the key people of the Department of Correction on your show to answer some of the questions, concerns. And let me just say for those who identified to say rag on their head, some people stereotype our women of color. And we're gonna have to end some of the stereotyping that they say about our people. Right. Many things we do because we have no other recourse. Right. Many things we do because that's our lifestyle. And we got a right to choose our lifestyle. So sometimes, I describe things and I hope we do shows about that and conversation. But I look forward to having you all on my show. And I'll do one, and I would maybe bring some key members of the Judiciary Committee on to have an opportunity to talk to you all, to talk with you all, and have a community conversation. That'll happen in the next few months. I look forward to a series of it, and I would love to help you on the Department of Correction in the women's prison. And I have a Zoom too to go 1,000, that reaches out to 1,000. So
wonderful. We can help create that extra synergy and momentum and collaborate and just help the people.
Yeah, power to the people, that's for sure. And then you talk about the stuff with the women with the rag on their heads. And as I said, you got misconceptions coming from the majority community. I already had some issues with me wearing a headscarf, a gaily. Some Black women in Detroit, Black judges. I just can't, you go when I'm in school and when I was in a predominantly white school and dealing with catching stuff from some white folks that were misguided, I got upset and I had to deal with that. But then I'm like, but I go around Black folk and got to deal with some ignorance behavior from Black folk too. So it's like, you gotta, what did my daddy say? Attorney Robert McCoy, he says, he's like, you got to just meet people and gauge who they are, where they're coming from. He said, don't always just limit it to blue or red. He's like, look at people and see who's really there for you. Cause you got some blue folk that they say they're for you and then they're not really for you. I mean, so you gotta just,
What did I say earlier? Because you look like me, doesn't mean you get a pass. Right. You get the same treatment I'd have gave somebody else who didn't look like me. At the end of the day, and I hate to say this to many of you guys, say it in private, but I might want to say it in public to state in my life. Everything dark ain't Black.
Interesting.
Claire Thomas.
That's deep.
Claire Thomas. Okay.
Some things relate to the struggle that makes you what you are.
Right.
Some people have never had a reality check. Sometimes you have a reality check about who you are. It makes a difference. It used to be a reason why they put pictures on resumes and they went in the trash. So there's a reason why they put pictures on it. There's a reason why people look at your name and kind of stereotype you.
And they still do that.
Yeah, they look at your name. Lakeisha, Ebony? No, Ebony, no, yeah, baby. So look forward to talking to you all. Thank you. I look forward to being with you. Let me say many times, because I think you could be the advocate that the community needs. I always give kudos. Judge Anna Diggs Taylor, who I knew as Anna Diggs, Congressman John Conyers, Robert Millinger, many of the prestigious Detroit attorneys went south for the civil rights movement.
The ancestors, right?
They went south. They went south to bail people out of jail, for civil nonviolent demonstration. They went south to be their voice in the courtroom. I can remember Congressman Conyers and I having a conversation, but we were friends. I did his campaign one year, and I consulted on 3 of his campaigns, and telling me the story about how they got in Georgia on a demonstration. They wouldn't even let them leave the plane, couldn't even leave the ground. They were so upset about being down there. They wouldn't even let the plane leave the ground. And he said we had to make all kinds of phone calls just to get out of Georgia. But that says something about how far we came. But let me also point out the fact it was African-American lawyers and other majority lawyers in those courtrooms and in those issues and those causes, being the advocate, making sure the voice was heard. Be safe, stay safe. God bless you.
All right.
Thank you, Rep. Ronnie. Bye.
Peterson.
Happy Black History Month.
Thank you. Same here.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
All
Talk
right.
to you soon.
Well, zoom me out of here, huh? I came in peace.
All righty.
Do I disconnect or you disconnect me?
Oh, you would just push leave the meeting.
Leave.
Oh, you wait
The
for me
red
to. Let me see here.
Or I can, I may not just.
Delete me. I thought I wait for you to buzz me out. That's what I was waiting for. You all have those smiling faces, you know.
I'll end it, and Tracy, we can zoom back in a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Yep. I'll do it that way.